They said the history of war was the one subject no alien race could afford to teach freely when it involved humans. Not without supervision, not without control. At the Galactic Dominion's elite academy, Zenith Core Institute of Higher Consciousness, history classes were mandatory. Thousands of species sent their brightest younglings here, bred in labs or born to royal dynasties, all gathered to learn the truth of the universe's past. They studied the rise and fall of ancient empires, black hole harvesters, even the mind wars of the Elarchs, where sentient thoughts killed faster than weapons. But when it came to teaching humanity's wars, the room always changed. Metallic walls shifted to soft-lined containment foam. Surveillance drones hovered, not outside, but inside, the lecture hall. The instructors wore nerve pacifiers strapped to their skulls to counter emotional contagion, and sitting in one corner, never engaging, was always a single Class 5 war counselor, armored and armed, eyes scanning for panic, rage, or worse, inspiration. Because when young alien minds learned what humans did during their darkest hours, something strange happened. They admired it. Professor Ikthar Reshol, a Riven-class scholar with a brain structure that resembled woven mercury, stood behind his translucent lectern. "Today," he rasped through his translator gel, "we begin our survey of Earth's third global conflict, commonly known as World War III. Instantly, a thick silence fell over the amphitheater. Even the Velnar twins from Sector 9, who never shut up, leaned in without a sound. "Before we proceed, I remind you all," the professor continued, eyeing each student with solemn gravity, "that the presence of Counselor Drax is not optional. The Dominion has declared Earth conflict content to be Class Hazard Omega. Psychological destabilization is a documented risk." Drax didn't blink. He never did. Clad in charcoal black armor, he watched the room like a silent predator. The rumors were that he'd once had to sedate a class of 42 after they saw footage from the siege of Nairobi, when starving human civilians, armed with kitchen tools and scavenged rifles, had outlasted an elite alien invasion squad for 94 hours. Straight Professor Ikthar projected the first holo reel. A battered, snowy wasteland blinked to life. Earth, mid-century. Human soldiers, faces cracked and bloodied from the cold, trudged through the ice. Their machines were rusting, ammunition low. One man, wrapped in rags, one eye swollen shut, lifted a flare gun into the sky. He fired. Nothing happened. And then, minutes later from the clouds, 12 jet-black bombers emerged, flying in formation. The humans had been waiting for a signal. A roar exploded across the lecture hall's surround audio. Not alien roars. Human ones. The footage shifted to trench warfare, screams, hand-to-hand combat, a teenage girl with no formal training swinging a metal pipe against armored drones, and winning. Ikthar paused the reel. "This," he said, almost whispering, "is where the Empire of Varnex first realized humans don't calculate odds. They calculate cost and then decide if they're willing to pay it. And they almost always are." A Uthari student raised her tentacled hand, visibly shaken. "But they were dying. They knew they would lose." "No," Ikthar replied. "They knew they'd win, even if it meant losing themselves." At that moment, Counselor Drax stiffened. His sensors pinged. A Jakari hybrid in the front row, soft-skinned and bred for peace, was vibrating. Not in fear, but in excitement. Drax stood. Everyone went still. "I need you to leave the room," he said, pointing at the student. "Now you're responding. It's starting." "No, I'm just curious," the hybrid pleaded, eyes wide. "Curiosity is how it begins," Drax snapped. "Then comes the admiration, then the obsession, and soon you think you can be like them." 2 drones swooped down. The student was gone in seconds, Ikthar resumed. "This is why we do not teach human history unsupervised. Because when your mind meets their past, you forget your present. And when you forget that humans are not like us, you start to believe you can survive what they survived." The class stayed silent for the rest of the hour. But one student in the back, a Glarn-born, cold-blooded and emotionless by design, never took his eyes off the screen. And inside, something was changing. The student's name was Sylvain Tyrek, born of the Glarn dynasty, engineered in gene wombs to suppress emotion, trained in cold calculation, educated in predictive warfare. He had never known panic, never known rage, never known awe, until Earth, until humans. He walked out of the lecture hall silently, as required by Zenith Core protocol. But inside, something was unraveling. A tremor, a crack in the mental shell that had kept his mind sterile since incubation. He couldn't understand it, but he could feel it, the raw, unfiltered madness of admiration. In the weeks that followed, Counselor Drax kept watch. War counselors had strict clearance to observe, but never interfere with the academic path of any alien, unless protocol thresholds were breached. Sylvan was just under every metric: elevated neural stimulation, yes. Minor pupil dilation. During human war content, yes. Slight pause in breathing during battle visuals, yes. But not enough to expel him. Not yet. What no one saw, not even Drax, was what Sylvan had started doing after hours. He accessed the restricted archives. Earth was the only species whose war records were partially locked under the Obsession Protocol. Students could view approved reels but not full data. Sylvan, however, was Glarn. He wrote the software that ran the firewall. One night, while the Academy slept, Sylvan bypassed the Dominion's encryptions and unlocked the file labeled Project Emberlight. What he found made his body temperature rise unusual, even dangerous, for a Glarn.Emberlight was a classified operation run by humans during their orbital occupation by the Varnex Empire. The Varnex, more advanced by centuries, had assumed Earth would surrender quickly. But they didn't understand. Humans, not yet. The footage began with static. Then came the message, a grainy video, time-stamped 3:44 a.m. UTC, showing a middle-aged human woman, her face bruised, her voice calm. "If you're watching this, you've already underestimated us." She looked straight into the camera, not with fear, not even defiance, with certainty. "You came to conquer. We came to end you." Then the rest of the footage kicked in. Cities. Burning, yes, but not from alien bombardment. From inside. Humans detonating their own power grids to blind the Varnex sensors. Civilians blocking atmospheric relays by jamming them with outdated tech, turned into microwave bombs. Children trained to move as decoys. Elders wired into citywide trap networks, smiling as they pushed detonators in their final breath. Emberlight wasn't resistance. It was a suicide doctrine designed to teach the enemy one thing: Earth does not kneel. Earth bites back. Sylvan watched it again, then again, 37 times over 2 nights. He stopped sleeping, his hive-assigned meal. Cycles went untouched. The drone assigned to his wing logged irregular heart rates, neural shockwaves, and the emergence of something that had no translation in the Glarn lexicon. In human terms, it was called obsession. 1 week later, during interspecies strategy seminar, a debate broke out between a Zelron tactician and an Amari noble. The topic: could Earth have won the war of fusion without orbital help from rogue alien sympathizers? The Zelron scoffed. Of course not. Humans are biologically inefficient. They lack telepathic cohesion. Their weaponry was outdated. And Sylvan stood, without permission. Your logic is flawed. All eyes turned. Glans never interrupted. Sylvan's voice was steady but lower than usual. Humans do not win by metrics, they win by will. They are the only species that will detonate their own children if it means breaking your morale. You say they needed help. I say the help needed them. The room fell quiet. Professor Andrek, a wispy Algorian, frowned. Sylvan, are you sympathizing? No. I am analyzing. Emotionally detached. But his eyes said otherwise. Counselor Drax was there. He didn't speak, he didn't move. But he wrote his first report. Subject: Tyrek, Sylvan, early indicators of human war idealization. Recommended deep monitoring, but it was already too late, because later that night Sylvan didn't return to his room. Instead, he went to the battle simulation hall, sealed the doors, hacked the AI settings, and loaded a restricted campaign. Earth Defense, year 2130, last stand of the free. Cities. The simulation's AI asked, which side do you wish to fight for? Sylvan didn't hesitate. Earth. The world around him flickered, and he became human. No extra strength, no telepathic field, no enhanced armor, just sweat, blood, pain, and an axe in his hands. He smiled for the first time in his life. The axe in his hands felt too heavy. The gloves didn't fit right. His simulated heartbeat pounded like thunder in his ears, an unfamiliar, irregular drum. The human body was imperfect, fragile, weak, and yet Sylvain had never felt more alive. The simulation opened with chaos. Sirens blared through a ruined cityscape, smoke curled through cracked buildings, and shadows of enemy walkers thudded in the distance like the footfalls of gods. The AI fed him a storyline. You are Sergeant Daniel Reyes, 29 years old, last known survivor of the Chicago Metro Garrison. Your orders: hold Sector 7C until reinforcements arrive. Estimated arrival time: never. Sylvain gripped the axe tighter. That name, that role, Daniel Reyes, felt like more than fiction. In this moment, it was him. He stood on the shattered rooftop of a collapsed building, surrounded by what remained of humanity's final resistance. Two simulated soldiers crouched beside him, one a pale, bleeding girl missing a leg, holding a pistol with both shaking hands. The other, a middle-aged man with a burned face and a rifle that had clearly been salvaged from at least 3 others. Incoming, someone yelled. A sonic boom cracked the sky as Varnek's dropships descended through the clouds. Sylvain, or Sergeant, Reyes shouted instinctively. Positions! If they take this sector, they take our lungs. No one breathes alien air. The words weren't his. They were Earth's, but they came out of his mouth like instinct. The battle began, wave after wave. The first came in hard, drones with plasma claws, gliding low and fast. Sylvain charged them with a scream. His human body took damage. He bled. But he didn't stop. The axe broke on the third drone. He picked up a pipe. Then a shard of concrete. He killed 7 before his simulated arms gave out. The AI paused the scenario. A blinking prompt appeared. Continue simulation. Warning, pain thresholds exceed standard safety limits. Sylvain didn't blink. Continue. For 4 hours, he lived death after death, burned alive, crushed beneath debris, shot, dismembered, and always reloaded. Always fought again. By the end of it, he didn't feel fear. He felt something far worse, respect. Back in his real body, sweat soaked through his exosuit, he collapsed onto the sim room floor, gasping, trembling, disoriented. It was morning. Counselor. Drax stood at the edge of the room. He had seen the whole thing. You understand what you're doing? Drax said, voice low and grim. Sylvain looked up at him, eyes glassy. I understand that I will never be like them, but I also understand none of us ever will be. Drax nodded slowly. That's the most dangerous kind of understanding. He walked away. Later that day, a formal hearing was held in Zenith Corps' disciplinary chamber. Sylvain was accused of violating security protocols, unauthorized access to restricted Earth War archives, and mental contamination by human conflict ideology. The headmaster, a reptilian archon of the Cuthal Order, narrowed its slitted eyes. You accessed files sealed under Class Omega restriction. Do you deny this? I don't. Do you understand the risk your actions pose to the Interspecies Educational Alliance? I do. Then what is your defense? Sylvain looked at the tribunal, his voice calm. Understanding humanity is not a risk, it's a requirement. One day, they will rise again. And if we don't understand what they are, what they're willing to do, we won't survive them a second time. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. One of the judges stood. You speak as if they are monsters. No, Sylvain said. We are the monsters. We colonized their world. We invaded. We enslaved. And yet they're the ones we fear. Because they don't just survive war, they become it. The tribunal voted to expel him. He was gone the next day, except he wasn't. Because 2 weeks later, an anonymous encrypted file began circulating through Zenith Corps' underground network. It contained over 300 hours of uncensored Earth War footage, annotated with detailed tactical notes, survival philosophy, and emotional analysis written in Glan code. The author signed it. Daniel Reyes, 21:30. The file spread like wildfire. Students began simulating Earth battles on unauthorized servers. Some passed out from shock, others became emotionally unstable. A few withdrew from their courses entirely to dedicate themselves to understanding the human condition. The Dominion tried to stop it, but it was too late. Sylvain had planted the virus of admiration, the one thing the Dominion feared more than human rage, human reverence. Because when aliens stopped fearing humans and started worshipping them, that's when the real war would begin. The virus spread silently. By the time the Dominion realized what had happened, over 47 academies across 5 systems had reported abnormal behavior among their students, erratic decision-making, emotional instability, and most troubling of all, identity confusion. Entire simulation chambers were overrun with Earth-based scenarios. Students once bred for logic were now quoting human war generals in debate halls, reading Earth philosophy under starlight, and worse, dreaming of being one of them. Sylvain Tyrek became a ghost story, a legend. The Dominion's official records listed him as mentally compromised, a cultural casualty of exposure to aggressive, low-species conflict narratives. But in dark corners of the hypernet, a different story grew, of the Glan who didn't break under Earth's fire, but burned himself alive to carry its flame to others. Soon, the Dominion enforced a universal ban. No human war history in open classes. No more Earth-based simulations. Even mentioning their past without clearance became a disciplinary offense, but the damage was done. One of the most secure institutions in the galaxy, Velari Nexus Academy, known for its psychic training, Division reported a disturbing case. A student had carved the words "honor before surrender" into their own arm during a silent meditation drill. The phrase was traced back to a resistance commander named Elijah Trent, who led a doomed last stand in the Battle of Kodiak Ridge. That battle wasn't supposed to be public knowledge. Even Counselor Drax, still stationed at Zenith Core, knew then this wasn't a curiosity anymore. It was a movement, and it was about to get worse. Because 6 months later, without warning, a human signal pulsed from deep space. The last known Earth transmission before their communication network fell had been a final broadcast of surrender, but this one was different. The message was brief, raw, glitched, the voice old and hoarse, barely alive. If you're hearing this, then it wasn't the end. They broke the world, not the will. Humanity survives. We are the scar you left behind. The transmission repeated twice, then vanished. The Dominion's central archive locked the data, but it was too late, because every academy, every black market archive, every rogue AI caught a copy, and students heard it. At Zenith Core, Counselor Drax was summoned for a top-level meeting, not with professors, not with administrators, with a representative of the Dominion's High-Risk Threat Assessment Division, a being known only as Veltan 9. "We have a containment breach of cultural proportions," the voice rasped through voice scrubbers. Sylvain Tyrek didn't just violate code, he awakened emotional mimicry. And now young minds believe humans weren't just dangerous, but glorious. "They were monsters," Drax said firmly. "Necessary monsters, but monsters." Veltan 9's metal limbs clicked together. "Then why do your students dream of becoming them?" Drax couldn't answer, because even he had started watching the footage again, alone, at night. He'd told himself it was for oversight, but he knew the truth. He remembered a scene from the Battle of Detroit, a wounded soldier, no legs, one arm, dragging himself through fire to detonate a grenade beneath a Varnex tank. The man had smiled, teeth broken, skin charred, as he pulled the pin. "Don't worry, I've got this." It haunted Drax, not because it was horrific, because it was beautiful. Meanwhile, across the system, a quiet rebellion was forming, not of guns, not of politics, of ideals. Alien students forming anonymous networks, exchanging banned Earth philosophies, printing human quotes onto data pads. Not all of them understood what they were feeling, but they knew what they were seeking. They called themselves the Emberborn. Their motto, "What was once human will rise in others." The Dominion cracked down arrests, memory wipes, even disappearances. But they couldn't stop belief. They couldn't stop the whisper that Sylvain Tyrek hadn't died, that he had reached Earth, that humanity wasn't extinct, just waiting. Because if the universe had taught aliens one thing, it was this: you don't let humans write history, because when they do, they make it bleed. It began with a flare, not a weapon, not an invasion, just light, a long burning arc across the sky above the Dominion's border outpost on Xerxes 9, where ships hadn't flown in decades. The locals thought it was debris from the shattered human colonies until it landed, not crashed, landed, controlled, silent. The craft bore no insignia. It was jagged, stitched together with broken alloys and scorched plating. Not Dominion tech, not Varnax, not stolen. It was Earth-made, or at least Earth-born. Out of it stepped a figure draped in old-world military fatigues, pieced together from centuries of war. His face was obscured by a crude mask, but his stance, upright, unafraid, spoke clearly. "I am Commander Reyes," the voice said through the static, "and I have come to collect what was stolen. Across the galaxy, across secured Dominion lines, every sensor, every drone, every synthetic intelligence logged the transmission. Most called it a hoax, a remnant, an echo from a long-dead species. But deep in hidden corners of alien academies, among exiled students and secret believers, they knew. He was real. Word spread faster than the Dominion could stop it. The Emberborn, once fragmented, once afraid, rose. At Zenith Core, a hidden chamber deep beneath the abandoned sim rooms, flickered to life. 10 students sat in a circle. One of them, a young Amorai hybrid with golden skin, lowered her hood and looked into the hollow projection of Reyes. "We've studied you, worshipped your strength, but now we fight beside you." Across 5 systems, similar circles formed, a silent revolution of thought, built not on species but on spirit, the human spirit. And it wasn't human anymore, it was infectious, a virus of will, of defiance, of the refusal to kneel. The Dominion panicked. Troops were deployed, firewalls rewritten. Any mention of Reyes or Sylvain was scrubbed from public history. Counselors were given orders to detain and erase students who spoke the old Earth phrases. And yet, in every dark alley, in every encrypted file, the words returned. What was once human will rise in others. The Dominion assembled a team, a mix of war counselors, Psi-Null soldiers, and logic-grade tacticians. Their mission: infiltrate and destroy the Emberborn. They found them, and they fell. Not because the Emberborn had weapons, not because they had numbers, but because they had the one thing no simulation could replicate, the human strategy of madness. One team was ambushed by a fake surrender. Another was lured into an empty training pod and spaced into vacuum while laughing audio of Earth comedians played over the intercom. The final team, led by none other than Counselor Drax, cornered a cell on asteroid R97. He recognized the leader by his eyes, Sylvain. The Glarn, now wearing repurposed Earth armor, looked back without fear. "You taught me, Drax," he said. "You just never understood what you were teaching. Stand down, you're not human." Sylvain smiled. "No, I'm worse. I'm someone who chose to become one." Drax raised his weapon. Sylvain didn't flinch. "Shoot me," he said. "And I become a martyr. Let me live and I become a myth." Drax hesitated, and that was all Sylvain needed. The blast doors sealed, smoke hissed, explosives detonated beneath the floor. The chamber caved in, and Sylvain vanished into legend. Later, in every academy across the galaxy, strange graffiti appeared. In old Terran script, in ancient Earth dialects, words scratched into metal walls, written in blood, projected onto moons. History is no longer safe. The counselors have failed. Earth lives in every student who chooses resistance. Over silence. No one knew where the message came from. Some say it was a new transmission, others say it came from deep space, broadcast by the last human AI, the one that had survived the orbital collapse. The one that had learned how to manipulate alien networks with nothing but broken Earth memories. And some say It came from Commander Reyes himself, still alive, still out there, still fighting. The Dominion eventually declared Earth history too dangerous to teach, too corrupting, too volatile. And in every academy, from Zenith Core to the halls of Valari Nexus, Earth's name was forbidden. But the students whispered it. Late at night, when no counselors were watching, when war simulations were secretly restored, when, a single phrase kept them going, they tried to erase humanity from history. So now when we make them regret remembering,